Well, let me begin by warmly congratulating Rajiv Malhotra for what I would call a courageous move. I think the process of corrosive questioning of certain legacies which continue to overshadow us even today needs to be done. Needs to be done not as xenophobia, not as chauvinism, but in a reasoned, researched, calm, contemplative counter. The problem today in many discourses is that you have views, but they don't become chiseled points of view because not enough thought has gone behind them. So we are proverbially an argumentative nation, but very often it's a lot of surface noise, whereas actually our civilization is known for maulic soch, the power of thought, the power of deep, still, concentrated energy of thought. And that must come back again, because a certain process has happened. Rajiv's book represents the questioning of a certain process which is part of history. And that process began when colonialism began. This is not about the acrimony of history. We are not going back to retell history, but we must acknowledge the consequences of history in order to understand ourselves better today. The project of colonialism is not about the physical subjugation of people. The primary purpose of the project of colonialism is the colonization of your mind. The rulers need to make a case for their rule by which they must prove the superiority of their civilization and the relative or absolute inferiority of yours. It's a process, and it is stark. This is not speculative history. If you look at the phases of colonization, there was a first phase which I call the honeymoon phase, where there was a somewhat more benevolent discovery of Indian culture. When the Asia Society was set up and people discovered the Sanskrit classics, etc. But it was very soon overtaken by a new evangelism which was convinced about the superiority of Western civilization and its corollary that therefore they were ordained to rule an inherently inferior civilization. But the interesting thing is that this institutional and organized bias was internalized by the ruled. Unless you understand that, it doesn't work. The ruled, the natives, were not only given this message, but over a period of time, through an institutional process, they actually internalized this bias. And therefore, this robust assertion of superiority on one part and this lack of opposition from the other created an asymmetry which is the foundational basis of Western universalism, where a certain paradigm is asserted and the other party has been so trained, not so physically subjugated, but has been so mentally trained to accept it. As once Ghalib said, "Baat par wahan zuban katti hai, wo kahe aur suna kare koi." They speak and we listen. So that kind of syndrome became important, and Rajiv has given many very good examples. You don't have to necessarily agree with his point of view on all of them, but they are very good examples of the areas in which that difference exists and is valid. Let me give you a simple example of, for instance, Lord Krishna. Now, in the Hindu worldview, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It's an exceptionally pragmatic worldview. And Vatsyayan in the Kama Sutra says, in the first chapter, that each of the first three pursued in proportion and none in exclusion leads automatically to the fourth, which is moksha. Dharma, artha, kama. Each in proportion, none in exclusion. But which also then gives philosophical validity to the pursuit of desire within the overall ambit of an enlightened life. And therefore, Krishna's Shringar Roop has a place in the overall Hindu worldview. It reflects that. After all, if you think about it, when he left Vrindavan, after all his rather enjoyable frolics with the gopis, the Ras, and went just a few kilometers away to Mathura, he never returned. The gopis were bereft, and he was a few kilometers away, but he never returned. Each pursued in proportion and none in exclusion, but they have a validity. But to the British critique of Krishna in his Shringar Roop, as they have written, I can literally dozens upon dozens of sightings where they say that this is a cesspool of immorality. It's incomprehensible to an outside gaze. And therefore, when the Hindu revivalist movements took place at the turn of the 20th century, the attempt was to reinterpret our own culture and civilization in categories that would win Western approbation, Western approval. And so Krishna's Shringar Roop was jettisoned or glossed over, and you had Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, far more projected. I'm giving you a random example. Even Bankim Chand Chatterjee, a great revivalist, nationalist, said that this Geet Govind, this lyrical, beautiful Jayadev's Geet Govind, is really lacking all manly virtues. But that was not the point of the Geet. So, in that sense, you internalize the critique. And the other side of the coin is that with this colonial legacy, which if not questioned, continues to linger far beyond political independence. The conventional mythology is that the Union Jack goes up, the tricolour comes up, and a phase ends. But its cultural consequences, which are being challenged in his book, continue much longer. So one is the colonial legacy, and the other is the new challenge posed by globalization. The challenge posed by globalization in the field of culture is summed up in one word: co-option. Co-option means that essentially you say the world has shrunk into a small village. We are all like each other. And therefore, it would be valid, but for two reasons. It's not a level playing field. Some civilizations have greater wherewithal in order to project their culture. And if you are not vigilant, or if you do not develop sufficiently your questioning ability, the chances of your being the deer and someone else being the tiger is very high. And especially ancient civilizations, therefore, need to be vigilant, because some of the themes that Rajiv has taken up, without a doubt, they reflect certain eternal verities which have not been given their due place in the attempt to accommodate them in some larger Western paradigm. And not enough questioning has gone into it. Because the eclectic frame of mind of, for instance, I'm talking now of Indian/Hindu only because I'm talking of a certain period of history. You can negate everything in order to assert the other. When Shankaracharya says, na me raga dvesh, na me mohalo, madho naiva me naiva matsarya bhava, na dharmo, na chartho, na kamo, na moksha, kuch bhi nahi. Whatever was asserted does not exist. What exists? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham Shiva. Bliss awareness. So in the assertion of one, there is the complete negation of the other. And of course, we are all familiar. Ekam Satya. Vipraha Bahuda Vedanti. There is one truth, so many people say. So there is an eclectic frame of mind, and there's one issue. Professor Nandi is sitting here. Morality. The subjectivity and relativism on morality in our thought needs to be understood. You know, when Duryodhan died, the heavens rained down flowers on him. Bada Veer Yodha. Even Sita in the Ramayana, Kaikeyi in the Ramayana, is not guilty. Because according to the Ramayana, she was temporarily taken over as a result of the gods. Saraswati took over a mind in order to ensure that Ram goes on exile, in order that he kills the demons. There is no ultimate fault ascribed to anyone. Everything has a certain relativism to it. And there is no absolute ego also. I mean, in one of the lines Radha sings, when Krishna is philandering with other women, which in a conventional sense is philandering, she says, Chalo Sakhi, Sautan ke ghar jai. Chalo Sakhi, Sautan ke ghar jai hai, मान घटे तो क्या घट जाई है, प्रीतम अदरस हो जाए. It doesn't matter, not simplicity, ego simplicity, arrogance of spirit. Where is our arrogance of spirit today? Where is that Maulik Soch? Where is that question? For which you were known, for which you were in a sense the compass of the world. We need to go back to that. And I think Rajiv's book is a very significant attempt in that direction. Thank you.